بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله، صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة ويا عبرة كل مؤمن ومؤمنة، يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. قال الله تعالى في محكم كتابه الكريم: وقوله الحق وهو أصدق الصادقين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الذين أخرجوا من ديارهم بغير حق إلا أن يقولوا ربنا الله ولولا دفع الله الناس بعضهم ببعض لهدمت صوامع وبيع وصلوات ومساجد يذكر فيها اسم الله كثيرا ولينصرن الله من ينصره إن الله لقوي عزيز. So when you're gathering with a loud remembrance upon Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. As a gift to the soul of Sayyidina wa Mawlana Al-Imam Al-Hussein, his companions and his family, recite the second salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept our humble remembrance of Imam al-Hussein and to shower onto this gathering with his infinite mercy and compassion and forgiveness, recite the third salawat with the loudest of your voices. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. ومن كلام لسيدنا ومولانا أمير المؤمنين أنه قال: واعلموا أنه ليس على أحد بعد القرآن من فاقة ولا لأحد قبل القرآن من غنى، فإن فيه شفاء من أكبر الداء وهو الكفر والنفاق والغي والضلال. In an eloquent sermon, Sayyidina wa Mawlana Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, speaking of the Quran, says, and know that there is no wealth and there is no richness without the Quran. And know that there is no poverty with having the Quran. Then he continues and he says, for it is the cure of the greatest of illnesses: kufr, nifaq, hypocrisy, falsehood, and injustice. And brothers and sisters, when we look at the Quran, we find that there are two main themes within the Holy Quran. There are two main objectives throughout the entire book. Number one is to perfect human beings, to purify human beings. Number two, to bring dignity and honor to human beings, to allow them to live dignified lives. And Allah says this clearly within the Holy Quran. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. We have dignified, we have honored the children of Adam. And if you look at the mission statement of Al-Imam Abu Abdullah Al-Hussein, Sayyid Al-Shuhada, you find that he says, إِنِّي لَمْ أَخْرُجْ أَشْرًا وَلَا بَطِرًا وَلَا مُفْسِدًا بَلْ خَرَجْتُ لِإِصْلَاحِ أُمَّةِ جَدِّي رسول الله لكي آمر بالمعروف وأنهى عن المنكر وهذا يزيد رجل فاسق فاجر قاتل النفس المحترمة وقد ركزني بين اثنتين بين السلة والذلة وهيهات من الذلة. Indeed, the revolution of Imam Hussein also highlights those two important factors. He says, I did not embark on this journey for the sake of popularity, for the sake of fame, for governance, but I embarked on this journey for the following two reasons. Number one, Islah, which is perfection of the Ummah, the purification of the Ummah. And number two, he speaks of dhul. He speaks of humiliation, belittling of human beings and the believers, dehumanizing the human beings. He says, those are my two main objectives. And today, we find that's more than 1,000 years after the revelation of the Quran, and more than 1,000 years after the revolution of Sayyid al-Shuhada, al-Imam al-Hussein, alayhi afdalu salati wa azka salam, the Muslim Ummah is in dire need of those two things. Is in dire need of perfection. It's in dire need to be purified. It's in dire need to be guided. And number two, you find that some, in the name of Islam, with the call of Allahu Akbar, have dehumanized individuals, have taken their dignity away from them, have taken their honor away from them. Every day we wake up and we find the news speaking of a new terrorist group. One day it's called Taliban. One day it's called Nusra. One day it's called Daesh. One day it's called Qaeda. Every day it has a new name. Whether it's that, or the crushing of the innocent demonstrators in Bahrain, or the sentencing of the innocent man, Sheikh Nimr al-Nimr, or the killing of Sheikh Hassan Shahata in the month of Sha'ban, and the 15th of Sha'ban, while he was praying and supplicating in Egypt, or the acts of murder of Daesh. All of that together has taken away the dignity of human beings, has dehumanized so many individuals, Muslims and non-Muslims alike. The Azeri citizens of Iraq have been abducted, have been driven out of their homes. They had to flee for their lives. The Christian citizens of Syria, of Iraq, likewise. Some of them have to experience slavery. Daesh abducts them and puts them in the slavery market. thousands, if not millions, of the followers of Ahlul Bayt have been fleeing from their homes, have been killed, dehumanized, disrespected, all in the name of those who say La ilaha illallah, all in the name of those who on their flag they carry the name of Allah and Muhammad. And today, respected brothers and sisters, we have to feel responsible. We have to feel responsible to restore the name of Islam, to restore the teachings of Islam, which have been hijacked by those terrorists, which has been hijacked by those who call themselves Muslims. For what an average Joe would know, living in the West, is that there are Muslims who pray, they fast, they on their flag, they say Allah and Muhammad, and they call themselves the Islamic State, but yet they're beheading people, they're terrorizing people, they're abducting women and children. I should not expect an average Joe living in the West to know the difference between them and me. For what he knows, he sees that I call myself a Muslim, and they call themselves Muslims. So what is our duty? Our duty is to be inspired by Al-Imam Al-Hussein, by Sayyid Al-Shuhada. That is why there's a great saying that says, Al-Islam Muhammadiyul Wujud, Husayniyul Baqa. Islam was established by Muhammad, but it continued and it was protected by Hussein. And today, the followers of Hussein, those who are inspired by Hussein, must take the same footsteps. And amongst our greatest of grievances now is the destruction of the religious sites, the destruction of the religious symbols by those barbaric beasts, including the shrine of Nabiullah Yunus, Jonah, a prophet who's been revered by over 3 billion individuals around the world. A shrine that united the Muslims, the Jews, the Christians in the land of Mosul and Iraq, was destroyed. And we may be asked, why is it that you Muslims have destroyed the shrine of a prophet? In response, what do we say? We say Islam is the only Abrahamic faith that dictates all of its followers must acknowledge, respect, revere, and emulate all the 124,000 prophets, including Yunus. That is why I have decided to examine this topic in the following manner. Number one, the status of Yunus, or the prophet Jonah, within the 3 Abrahamic faiths. Number 2, the destruction of religious sites and religious symbols by the Wahhabi movement. Number 3, why is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this ayah of the Quran, chapter 22, verse 40. Number 4, the Quranic perspective on other religious symbols and sites that belong to non-Muslims. And number 5, what was the message of Imam Hussein in the day of Ashura that inspired Muslims and non-Muslims alike, including Abdullah ibn Wahab al-Kalbi, the Christian young man. وَصَلُّوا عَلَى مُحَمَّدٍ وَآلِ مُحَمَّدٍ. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. هذا في الشكل لازم يحطون له. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد Jonah, the prophet Jonah or Yunus, has an entire book dedicated to him in the Holy Bible that consists of 4 chapters. And within those 4 chapters, the Holy Bible speaks of his mission to Nineveh. And it's a beautiful story in which he ends up embarking on a ship, and then he's thrown in the sea, and there in the stomach of a whale. And then it speaks of his prayers in the stomach of the whale, and the darkness of the sea, the darkness of the night, and the darkness of the stomach of the whale, or the big fish. And that, how he was rescued by God and arrives back to his community. And you find that the story within the Bible and within the Quran has great similarities. Jonah, for the Jews, is an extremely revered and respected prophet. For on the day of Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar, the Jews read his story and are inspired by him. And he was, for the Jews, a prophet that was meant to be the assistant of Eliasa or Elisha. And he was meant to rejuvenate the children of Israel, the Israelites. Likewise, Allah speaks of Yunus or the Nun within the Holy Quran. وَذَنُّونِ إِذْ ذَهَبَ مُغَاضِبًا فَظَنَّ أَن لَّن نَّقْدِرَ عَلَيْهِ فَنَادَى فِي الظُّلُمَاتِ أَن لَّا إِلَٰهَ إِلَّا أَنتَ سُبْحَانَكَ إِنِّي كُنتُ مِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ فَاسْتَجَبْنَا لَهُ وَنَجَّيْنَاهُ مِنَ الْغَمِّ وَكَذَلِكَ نُنْجِي الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Indeed, an extremely inspiring story. Why? It inspires both the leaders and the congregation. Yunus told them that within 3 days Allah is going to send down His punishment onto you all. They didn't take him seriously. So he embarked on the ship. He left them. The next day they woke up and they realized that the punishment of God was imminent. Yunus was not joking. So they went, they knocked at his door, they didn't find him. He was gone. They started panicking. What are we going to do? The punishment's coming, but we truly want to repent. We truly want to go to Allah. We truly want to change as a community. One of the believers in Yunus got up and he said, "What do you need?" He said, "We need Yunus. We want to ask forgiveness." He said, "If Yunus is not here, the Lord of Yunus is here. If Yunus cannot hear you now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will. So as a community, all of you together, come to seek for forgiveness." So they gathered. They seek for forgiveness. There was an imminent threat, an imminent punishment, an imminent decision by Allah which was made. But due to their dua, due to their submission to the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how He witnessed that their hearts have been purified by tawbah, He removed the evil from them. So it inspires all communities. It's a story of inspiration for communities to come together when going to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to try and pray together, to try and supplicate together, to try and seek for forgiveness together. When you come together, allow Allah to be your goal. When you come for the sake of Allah. And when you come to the house of Allah, make sure you respect the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't come to the house of Allah to disobey Allah. We don't come to the house of Allah so that we disunite the members of our community. No. We're supposed to bring them together in the name of Allah. And second, it also inspires every leader to not give up on his community, to remain patient, to remain steadfast. And that is why the shrine of the prophet Jonah or Yunus resembled an inspiration for Muslims, Christians, and Jews together. The very first person who protested the destruction of the shrine of the prophet Yunus or Jonah was the head of the School of Talmud Studies in New York. Because he said that was a place that united the Muslims, united the Jews, united the Christians and pilgrimage in Iraq, but now it's destroyed. And why is it that we go to pilgrimage? Why is it that we stand on such shrines? Is it just because of the grave? No. It's to seek the inspiration. It's to seek the lessons. It's to incorporate its fruitful teachings within our lives and our communities. Number two, the destruction of holy sites, religious symbols by the Wahhabis. Who are the Wahhabis? The headquarters of Wahhabism, of course, in the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. They have exported Wahhabism to almost everywhere, including Australia. Yesterday there was a shooting by members of Daesh in Sydney. Members of Daesh in Sydney. They shot someone in a Husayniyah. Why? Because he had gone to revere, to remember Imam al-Hussein. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was asked by the Muslim community after he migrated from Mecca to Medina, Ya Rasulullah, how can we ever repay you for all your services? For everything that you have done for us? We would kill one another, we would bury our daughters alive, we would urinate on ourselves. Yes. We would create a god from dates, then we would eat our God. This is what we were, Ya Rasulullah, but look at what you've done. اذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ كنتم أعداء فألف بين قلوبكم فأصبحتم بنعمته إخوانا. Allah says, remember what Rasulullah did for you. You were enemies. He made you into brothers. You were foes. He made you into friends. He worked so hard that Allah speaks of that in the Quran. Taha, ma anzalna alayka al-Qur'ana litashqa. Taha, you don't have to fatigue yourself because of them, because they're not willing to listen, because they're not willing to accept Iman. So they came to him, Ya Rasulullah, how can we repay you? Allah tells him, Ya Rasulullah, tell them that the only way you repay me is by you to show and demonstrate your love for the Ahlul Bayt. قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. You cannot repay me by salah. You cannot repay me by hajj. You cannot repay me by money. You cannot repay me with anything else besides إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. Not mahabbah. All Muslims, they love Ahlul Bayt. Mawaddah is different than mahabbah. Mawaddah is when you show your love, you demonstrate your love. You wear the black for the tragedy of Hussein. You shed a tear for the tragedy of Hussein. You take out time to attend the majlis of Hussein. What do we say? We say, Ya Rasulullah, أعظم الله لك الأجر بمصابك بولدك الإمام الحسين. We show him our love. We repay Rasulullah by showing our love to his family. Yet this person goes to a Husayniyah in Sydney to do just that, which is mentioned in Surah Ash-Shura. Someone comes and shoots him. Therefore, we find that the Wahhabi movement has grown all the way to the West. Pakistan, Taliban are Wahhabis, Al-Qaeda are Wahhabis, Daesh are Wahhabis. And the Wahhabi movement is responsible for the destruction of many religious symbols. In the year 2001, the destruction of the Buddha temples in Bamiyan by Taliban. In 1925, the destruction of Jannatul Baqi'. Recently, they bulldozed so many churches, so many mosques, so many synagogues in Syria and Iraq. Burned down so many masjids. And the destruction of the grave of Hujr ibn Adi al-Kindi, this great follower of Rasulullah, the companion of Amir al-Mu'mineen, a man of faith, a monument of taqwa and piety. They destroyed his grave, his shrine. They threatened to destroy, or they even tried to destroy the grave of Sayyida Zainab in Syria. And now they say that they want to destroy the shrine of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, the shrine of Imam al-Hussein. And they did destroy the shrines of Imam al-Hassan, Imam Zain al-Abidin, Imam al-Sadiq, Imam al-Baqir. The grandsons of Rasulullah, they destroyed the shrines of al-Askariyain. And believe me, their motive is to destroy the shrine of Rasulullah. And this is what they've been speaking of and contemplating on. To destroy the shrine of Rasulullah and to even move his body to Baqi'. This is the danger of the Wahhabi sect, the Wahhabi movement, the Wahhabi ideology. Number 3, why was this verse revealed? Chapter 22, verse 40. I'm going to speak of this chapter and dividing it into 2 segments. 1, Allah says, الَّذِينَ أُخْرِجُوا مِنْ دِيَارِهِمْ بِغَيْرِ حَقٍّ إِلَّا أَنْ يَقُولُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهِ. There's a group of people who have been driven away from their land, from their homes, from their freedom, because they simply believe in Allah. Because they simply declare themselves as Muslims. And this speaks of the early on Muslims in Mecca. Why? Because as soon as they believed in Rasulullah, they became Muslim, they were persecuted for the 2 reasons. 1, it's because Quraysh saw Islam as a threat to its business. That was the main reason. Because here are people who come, they bring gold, they bring silver, they bring gifts, they bring dates, they bring food, they bring sheep, they bring camels, and they put it in front of the idols, where? In Mecca, and they leave to make peace with the gods. To have a great year with the gods. As soon as they leave, who takes them? The gods? The idols? No, Quraysh. So every tribe of Quraysh, every family within Quraysh would have an idol, and people would come and put their gifts in front of the idol. This was their business. They were afraid of Islam to shut down their business. To shut down the idol worship. And sometimes we find that very strange. We say, those people, they saw Islam as a threat to their business. We also see sometimes Islam as a threat to our business. You say, brother, you have to go to Hajj. You must go to Hajj. This is the 5th year, the 6th year that you are given the opportunity to go. So say, but who am I going to leave the business on? Who's going to take care of my business? What about my business? When it comes to pay khams, Allah is the one that's given him all of it. All of the amount. And He says, pay me 20% of the extra money that you have. Extra money. Return it to Allah. And Allah is not in need. It's a test. But if the number is small, $500, $1,000 maybe. But if it becomes 200,000, 300,000, he hasn't paid khums in 10 years, now he has to pay $1 million. Now Islam becomes a threat to my business. Now I become just like Quraysh. Second, Islam was also a threat to their ideology. What do I mean? I mean, they came and they stopped people thinking. Don't think. Don't ask questions. Islam came and said, no, 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 think, ponder, ask questions. It gave them the freedom of expression, the freedom to exercise their rights as human beings. And Quraysh saw that as a threat. And what I truly respect about the West is you don't see a Western country, for example, blocking Twitter. You don't see a Western country blocking Facebook. You don't see a Western country blocking a newspaper. You don't see a Western country blocking a magazine or blocking a website on the internet. But yet, in many of the Islamic countries, you find one of the other has to be blocked. Why? Let people decide for themselves. Choose for themselves. Think for themselves. The second part of the ayah speaks of the honor and the respect and status that the religion of Islam gives to other houses of worship. So it speaks of وَلَوْلَا دَفْعُ اللَّهِ النَّاسِ بَعْضُهُمْ بِبَعْضٍ. If it wasn't for the protection of Allah, then لهدمت صوامع وبيع وصلوات ومساجد يذكر فيها اسم الله كثيرا. Then you would find the destruction of synagogues, churches, temples, and masjids, where the name of Allah there is remembered in abundance. So Allah puts the church and the synagogue and the temple and the monastery in the same verse when He wants to honor the houses of worship. If I am asked, how come is it that some Muslims burn down churches or synagogues or temples? I quote them chapter 22 verse 40 of the Quran. That puts the masjid and the church and the synagogue and the monastery in one status. Gives them the same honor. Gives them the same position. And says in all of them Allah's name is mentioned in abundance. And that is also personified in the sermon of Sayyidina wa Mawlana Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi alayhi. The 27th sermon of Amir al-Mu'mineen in Nahj al-Balagha, entitled the Sermon of Jihad, Khutbatul Jihad, where he speaks of jihad. What is jihad? Many people ask, what's jihad? Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen has a khutbah. In Nahj al-Balagha, the 27th sermon entitled Jihad, he introduces jihad, he speaks of it, then he says, وَقَدْ بَلَغَنِي, and I have been informed أَنَّ الرَّجُلَ مِنْهُمْ يَدْخُلَ عَلَى الْمَرْأَ الْمُسْلِمَةِ وَأُخْرَى الْمُعَاهَدَةِ فَيَسْلُبُ مِنْهَا حِجْلَهَا وَقَلَائِدَهَا فَتَسْتَغِيثُ بِهِ بِاسْتِرْحَامٍ فَلَوْ أن امرئا مسلما مات من بعد هذا أسفا لما كان عندي ملوما بل كان عندي جديرا به. He says, and I have been informed that the troops of Muawiyah, they had reached Anbar, and they had killed the governor of Anbar, Al-Hassan ibn Hassan al-Bakri. Go on to the Muslim woman and the non-Muslim under the protection of Islam. Sallallahu the Muslim woman and the non-Muslim woman under the protection of Islam. Imam Amir al-Mu'min doesn't say just the Muslim woman. The non-Muslim woman under the protection of Islam. Anyone that is weak, Imam Ali says, jihad is to defend the weak. Jihad is to stand with the oppressed. Jihad is not where you to go to the house of a Christian or a Jew or a Yazidi, knock at their door and say, now you are our slaves because they're weak. Amir al-Mu'mineen says jihad is to defend them, to stand with them, to protect them. And then he says, one of his most magnificent statements. He says, if a Muslim man hears of this, that they go on to Muslim women and non-Muslim women, and what do? Beat them? No, he says they take their earrings and their jewelry. So those Muslim women, they become upset. They say, please give us our jewelry back. He says, if a Muslim man dies out of sorrow and sadness after hearing this, I would not blame him. I would not blame him. I would not be surprised. That is why we are extremely proud of the position of Ayatollah al-Uzma al-Sayyid al-Sistani Hafidhahullah al-Iraq. He is one of the greatest religious symbols that has protected the lives of other minorities. He speaks in defense of the Christians, the Yazidis, the Sunnis. And that is the teaching of the religion of Islam. And yet, we're to see similar gestures from Medina, similar gestures from Mecca, similar gestures from different parts of the Islamic world. Misr, Tunis, Maghrib. He said that Sunnis are not just our brothers, but they are ourselves. We will protect them. We will defend them. Today the city of Karbala hosts the greatest number of Sunni and non-Muslim refugees. The city of Imam Hussein. There are Husseyniyat, masjids, centers, homes of individuals that have been opened to members of other schools of thought and members of other faiths. And that is why the message of Imam Hussein is not just a message for the Shia. It's not just a message for the Muslims. It's a message for everyone, including the man who was inspired by Imam al-Hussein in the day of Ashura. Abdullah ibn Wahab al-Kalbi, this Christian young man. He met Imam Hussein for several moments. While traveling, he saw Imam Hussein for several moments. Then he tells his mother that I cannot see myself separating from the cause of this man. I cannot see myself not defending this man. So he joins the army of Imam Hussein. And the day of Ashura, he goes and he fights. And he's an extremely brave young man. They say that he had just gotten married. So his wife says to him, Wahab, go and fight. Go and stand in solidarity with Hussein. For the message of Hussein belongs to all human beings. But don't leave me as a widow after Karbala. We just got married. So he goes and he returns. His mother says to him, Wahab, go. Go and give your life for the sake of Hussein, so that she can make us all proud with Fatima al-Zahra, his mother, in the day of judgment. His wife tells him, Wahab, please don't go. He went and he came back. His wife was calling him. She says to him, Wahab, I would like for you to go and give your life for Hussein, for the sake of Hussein, for the cause of Hussein. So he says to her, what happened? Moments ago you were telling me not to do that. Now you're telling me to go and not come back? She says to him, I could not bear the cries of Hussein when he stood in front of the tent. And he said, Ala hal min nasirin yansuruna. Ala hal min mughithin yughithuna. Wa nahnu alu Bayt Rasulillah. Is there anyone to come to our rescue? Not that Imam Hussein at that time wanted 5 or 6 people to come to his side, no. But it's because Imam Hussein wanted to show the picture for the rest of the world that I, as the grandson of Rasulullah, Sayyid Shabab Ahlul Jannah, when I called on to those so-called Muslims, they all ignored me. And they knew me because I told them I am the grandson of Rasulullah. ألا هل من ناصر ينصرنا ألا هل من معين يعيننا ونحن آل بيت رسول الله. There was no one to respond to him, so he went inside his tent. He wore the amamah of his grandfather Rasulullah. He wore the abba of his grandfather Rasulullah. He took the Quran. He came to the tent of the woman, the children. He called out, Ya Zainab, wa ya Rabab, wa ya Sukaynah, wa ya Fatimah, wa ya Kulthum. Halummu, halummu al-Huda', faqad qarba minkum al-iftija'. O Zainab, Rabab, Kulthum, my daughters, come and say goodbyes to your father, for those are indeed the last moments. He went in the tent, they all gathered around him, they held on to him. They were crying, Ya Aba Abdullah, who's going to be our protection after you? When he came out, he stood, he looked towards the sky, he said, who is there? Who is there to bring me my horse to me? So then moments later he found his sister Al-Aqila Zainab coming to him and saying, أَرَأَيْتَ أُخْتًا قَدَّمَتْ لِشَقِيقِهَا فَرَسَ الْمَنُونَ بِلَاحَمًا وَكَفِيلُ. Have you ever seen a sister that would give a horse to her brother that's going and not returning him? He sat on the horse. As soon as he began to leave the tent, he heard a cry saying, Mahlan, Mahlan, ya ibn al-Zahra, Mahlan, Mahlan, ya ibn al-Zahra. He turned around, who is it? Who is it that's calling my name? Barakallahu fikum, Allahumma arham hadhihi al-abarat. She said, I am your sister Zainab. What is it that you need? Come down from the horse. He came down from the horse. She took him and he faced Medina. She said, Hussein, lift up your chest for me. He lifted up his chest. She kissed his chest. She kissed his neck. Then she looked towards Medina. She said, Ummah, ya Fatima, this is your request. He said, what's your request? She said, my mother took me on the last days of her life. She said, my daughter Zainab, there will be a day, there is no one that's going to come to the rescue of your brother Hussein. On that day, Shimr will sit on his chest. On that day, the dagger of Shimr will lie on the neck of Hussein. Tell him on that day that his mother remembers him, because it's just an iznak. Allahu Akbar. He then tells her, bring my son Abdullah al-Radi' to me, so I can go and ask for water for this infant. She came, he was wrapped up in a white cloth. She gave him to Sayyid al-Shuhada, Imam al-Hussein. He looked at him and the child had almost died from thirst. So he went to them. He said, إِن لَمْ تَرْحَمُونِي فَارْحَمُوا هَذَا الرَّضِيعَ. شيعتي مهما شربتم عذب ماء فاذكروني، أو سمعتم بقتيل أو ذبيح فاندبوني، فأنا السبط الذي من دون جرم قتلوني. They came, they saw him asking for water for the infant. One of them said, give him water. The other said, don't. Umar ibn Sa'ad came. He told one of his slaves, do you see the neck of the child? He says, yes. He said, I want your arrow to land in the neck of the child. blood of the child. He poured into the sky. He said, "Oh Allah, accept this qurban from me. Accept this sacrifice from me." Ibrahim did not go through with his sacrifice of his beloved son Ismail, but here is Hussein offering you Aliyun al-Asghar. He wanted to go back to the tent. He doesn't want to show this child to his mother. So he held the child underneath his aba. He went towards the tent. Sayyidah Zainab says, "Ya akha, ya Aba Abdullah," did they give him water? السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين ورحمة الله وبركاته. نسألك اللهم وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم 10 times يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله. اللهم بحق طفل الحسين، اللهم بحق عطش الحسين، اللهم بحق غربة الحسين، اللهم بحق الحسين وبحق بنيه والتسعة المعصومين من ذريته وبنيه. اغفر ذنوبنا، استر عيوبنا، شافي كل مريض، أعز الإسلام والمسلمين واخذل الكفر والكافرين. ارزقنا زيارة الحسين قريبا عاجلا، شفاعته آجلا. Oh Allah, every man and woman present in this gathering with a haja, with a dua, with a need, oh Allah, give them their hajat. With an illness, give them cure. With problems within their family, within their lives, oh Allah, give them from your solutions. Oh Allah, allow us to lead a life of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Depart us with the love of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Accept this humble aza from us wa ila arwah al-mu'mineen wal-mu'minat wal-ulama'i wal-shuhada wa khadamat al-Husayn. نهدي جميعا ثواب سورة المباركة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Brothers and sisters, there will not be a Q&A.